Today, we're going to be reviewing this. It's the Makita coffee maker, a coffee machine made by the same people that make these power tools. It's absurd, it's a bit silly, and as such, well, it deserves more than a regular review. We should do something a little bit special. Well, let's go to work. Let me set the scene for you. You, a craftsman, an artisan, have come to work. You've spent the morning being very busy. You've been renovating a once industrious building into some expensive warehouse living. But it's break time. You're going to grab your lunchbox. Because you deserve a delicious little treat. Now, obviously, you're going to want to drink with that. One of your colleagues, well, he offers you a tea, but you don't want to drink an infusion of dry, dusty, broken tea leaves sewn into a paper coffin. No, you want a coffee. Now, you've got a thermos, but obviously, this is not coffee. This is the beef consomme that you're going to have as the soup course at lunchtime. You want fresh coffee, delicious fresh coffee. And for that reason, being where you are and who you are, you reach for this. Makita coffee maker. Now, we've got to have just a little reality check here, just for a second, because I have friends who work in offices and maybe make some nice coffee at lunchtime or break time. They brew a little V60 and they are mocked, teased, ribbed mercilessly by their colleagues for being a little bit weird about coffee, as if that's a bad thing. Now, I just can't imagine being the one guy on a building site that rolls in with my own personal coffee maker. Now, hey, maybe I'm falling into stereotypes about builders, but it does seem like a little bit of an opportunity for some mockery from your colleagues. You're going to brew some coffee, because fresh brewed coffee is the best thing in the world, and we'll talk through how this little thing works. First thing to see on the side of this thing here, most important thing, is this little sled here. Now, Makita make two different types of batteries, two different voltages. There's an 18 volt batteries, those are a bit bigger, and then there's a lower volt battery, I think around 12 volts maybe. You can use either one here. You've got choices. You just sort of slide backwards and forwards depending on your battery preference. Your water tank here at the back, very simple, and actually removable. And on here you can see you've got your little fill lines. Now, it says the capacity is 240 mils. That's sort of technically true, but it's not the brewer that decides the capacity of your brew. It's actually your battery, but we'll explain. You do also get your dual wall stainless steel mug, branded, very nice, not very big, but we're not brewing that much coffee with this. And then your brew basket. They do make a pod sort of basket, but we're not going to use that today. This is the fresh coffee basket, and actually the design's kind of nice. You've got your sort of shower screen here, and then if you open it up inside, you've got your sort of reusable mesh brew basket. It's not very big, but again, we're not making that much coffee. And that's how it works. You put water in, you're going to put coffee in here. We'll brew in just a second. And you get coffee. But before we brew coffee, I did say I'd explain the battery thing, right? We're going to do a little tiny bit of battery mathematics. So this is one of the lower voltage batteries, one of the smaller ones you could get. On a battery, it'll tell you what its sort of amp hours are, and if you've got the voltage too, you can work out what the sort of watt hours are. And in the case of this thing, it actually tells you it's 22 watt hours. So this can deliver 22 watts of power for an entire hour, and then it's empty. The brewer here, when it's brewing, is going to pull 190 watts, which is a lot more than the 22 sort of watts that this would discharge and theoretically as standard. And so you have a higher amperage draw, which means the battery discharges much faster. So at that watt draw, you can do some basic maths and discover that this will last for about 7 minutes. And with 7 minutes of brewing, they say you can brew 160 mils of coffee, which is not very much coffee, especially when you think about the weight of this battery. It's about 210 grams. So to make coffee, you'd need to have 200 grams of battery, 160 grams of water, some coffee, a grinder potentially, and the brewer itself, all of which weigh quite a lot more than like a thermos of coffee would. But maybe this thing brews such spectacular coffee that it would be way better than whatever you could make in a thermos at home with whatever setup you have and would bring in with you, that might degrade a little bit over a couple of hours in the morning. So maybe it's amazing. We should find out. Now, this battery, I'm gonna load in on the little sled. Done, we're ready to go. Let's get some water. Some water in. Now, coffee, they recommend a pretty weak recipe actually. They recommend like 50 grams a litre. I'm gonna brew 60 grams a litre because that's just how I like to brew my coffee. So let's grind some coffee. Grind it. Obviously, we're not gonna hand crank the hand grinder when we've got drills and batteries lying around. In we go. And now we're ready to brew. Now, like I said, it takes 7 minutes to brew a cup of coffee with this thing, with this little battery. And that battery will take an hour to recharge. And if you've got chargers on site, that's great. But you'd think, oh, if I've got power on site, why don't I just plug it in? But you can't plug it in. It's battery only. So every time you want a cup of coffee, you'd need to carry a dedicated battery. And 160 mils for this battery, well, if you want 2 or 3 cups in a day, yeah, you might have half a dozen sort of batteries for your drill, but are you gonna give half of them over to brewing coffee? Like I said, if it's amazing, if it's delicious, then maybe that's, totally worth it for you. Now, if you stick a temperature probe inside the brew basket and sort of look at the temperature of the water coming in, yeah, it hits perfectly normal temperatures that would match those of a cheap little domestic Mr. Coffee style filter coffee maker. Something that you might spend 20, 30 pounds on Amazon. That's a comparable kind of performer to this thing here. It's not bad. It starts a bit cold. It gets a bit hot at the end. The technology inside a brewer is kind of identical. What's sort of interesting here is that it runs on batteries. That's its point of difference, really. So the brew light's gone out, we're ready to drink, but it's going to be a little bit too hot to drink straight away, so I'm gonna have to think of something to do to pass the time. I have an idea.
And now a short ad from this video sponsor. It's Squarespace.
If you need a website or a domain, then I would recommend checking out Squarespace.
You recommend it to.
Now, there's a lot of different reasons you might have to build a website. You might have a photography project that you want to share. You might have an e-commerce business that you want to start. You might have a new book coming out that you're excited about. Squarespace has this and more covered. In fact, you want members-only content. They can do that. You want email campaigns. It's baked right in. You want analytics. You want nothing to patch, upgrade, or install. It's all covered by Squarespace. But like I always say, don't take my word for it. Sign up at the link below. Build a website, pick a template, fill it with your words, your images, your ideas, and when it's time to launch, use code James Hoffmann for 10% off any website or domain. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. In one! It's time to taste. Now, 160 mils in this cup produces a fairly disappointing serving. My 10 grams of coffee will have stolen about 20 grams of brew water, so I've got 140 mils for my battery. 10 grams of coffee. That's, maybe less caffeine than you might want to drink. But is it good? Is it delicious? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. It's exactly what you think it will taste like if you brewed a small batch of coffee on a cheap domestic Mr. Coffee type machine. It's good coffee. It's good water. It's freshly ground. All of the sort of key components for success are there. The brew temperature is not perfect, and certainly not for a lighter roast, but it's not that bad, but it's not that good. It's sort of fine. I'm not, if I'm honest, I'm not sure it's good enough to drink alongside the delicious treat that I have bought myself for today's snack time. So I'm going to brew something else because, honestly, if you're going to brew coffee at work, just bring an AeroPress with you. You know, boil a kettle and brew an AeroPress. Now you're going to say, how am I boiling a kettle? I'm on a building site. There's no power supplies available to me. What sort of kettle could I possibly use? Makita have you covered. Look at this. Look at this. It's a kettle. It's a kettle that runs on Makita drill batteries. Now you've got to have the big juicy batteries, the big chunky batteries, and this needs 2 of them at the same time to pull the wattage it needs. Now this looks like a big kettle. 800 mils is your maximum. We're not going to put 800 mils in there because that's wasteful. We don't need that much water. We're going to replicate this brew but with an AeroPress. So we'll do 160, 200 mils kind of thing in here. Should boil pretty quickly. And let's see if I can make a better building site coffee than this thing can. While still, you know, not betraying Makita. You know what I mean? We've got to be loyal to our power tool brands, apparently. So, like I said, I need 2. But one of them's still on my drill, and I've got to grind some coffee. You know, I'm sure there's a good reason, I don't know what it would be, I'm sure there is probably a good reason not to use a drill to grind coffee. It's definitely, you know, fun. I will say that. I'm having a great time doing this. I do also hate hand grinding, so that's probably a factor in this. Now, I'm not actually too worried about having drained this battery out with a bit of drilling. 2 of these batteries full will do 1.4 litres of water in total, assuming that your water is 23 degrees Celsius to start with. But we're not going to get anywhere close to that with 200 mils, so we'll be completely fine. Got myself a clean mug, but as I've just discovered, this AeroPress, bit of a snug fit. Not sure if I'm necessarily going to recommend that, but we'll make it work. It's about 10 grams of coffee to 160 grams. Of water. Thank you for that extremely thorough beep. 160. So a little press. Now I'm hesitant to press this too hard because I don't want to jam this into the mug. That's gone very wrong. Do not brew this AeroPress on a Makita mug. Bring a different mug from home. You can have a stainless steel one if you want to. Just this is not a good time for anyone. Now that's good coffee. So, this is the Makita coffee brewer. Let's ignore the kettle for now. I'm having great coffee, but not, honestly, from the Makita. And I just don't understand why this exists. I kind of get that they thought, here's an opportunity, we could just make a little coffee maker, but the battery to liquid ratio, which is a weird thing to say out loud, is pretty poor. Like, it's just a lot of battery weight to carry around to just make a cup of coffee. And actually, even the kettle, like these 2 batteries, they weigh over 1 kilo. This thing weighs 1 kilo. Like, you're just dragging a lot of stuff around the place. And honestly, most building sites find some way to have a power supply. Just buy a cheap coffee maker and plug it in. It won't annoy you as much. The use cases for this, where this and only this is the right answer to the problem, are so incredibly tiny that they pretty much overlap exactly with the sort of use cases where this would do a better job. You know, so I don't get it. But now I want to hear from you. Do you have one of these? Do you use it? Why? Tell me why. No, I don't, like, I mean, why? Like, in what situation is this better than just bringing something else from home and plugging it in? Or do you just hate thermoses? Do you have, like, thermos beef? That I don't understand. Why are you using this? Do you like it? Did I do something wrong? Was I unfair to it? Like, it is kind of hilarious. And do you get abuse for using it amongst colleagues? Just let me know. Let me know the deal down in the comments below. But for now, I'll say thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. I've got curd in my mustache. I've never had curd in my mustache.